So he come to Walter. I'm out of shells. Okay, Walter said, here you got some shotgun shells. I only need one, he says. And all we needed was a twig and some line. Probably we had twine or store string. And then we needed a bait. So if you had chewing gum, we'd put it on the bait and get a fish. You could always get a perch. The Lemeres came here in 1865 chasing buffaloes, and they seen a lot of whitefish in this clear lake that was so clear you could see the fish swimming. So they decided this was a good place to come and retire. Lots of bush to make a log cabin and make a garden, and also to fish off the lake, which was a real good livelihood. They built a sod house, and it's from this plaque to the east. The mud sod house was built about 100 yards from here. And so we were very close to the lake, and they always built their own boats out of lumber, and they were flat bottom, so they didn't tip over very easy. So when we were kids, they would have them on sawhorses, and they would be putting tar on the cracks so that it wouldn't leak. And then us kids, we never to touch them, because if we got tar on our clothes, it's very hard to get washed off. They built their own boats, and they would have 10, like for Sunday. Today is Sunday, and they would rent out 10 boats for $1 a boat. And that's how they made their money. And a lot of people left the boats all the way along, and they wouldn't come in to pay. They'd walk from where they were. So they had a boat for nothing. They wouldn't even pay $1. But he made, and fish, he would fish those whitefish with a net. Then he'd go to the villages. He went to Weimar, Blumenau, and all the way to Simi. So he would peddle his fish. He didn't always get money, but he got oats for feeding his horse, or he got potatoes or chickens or eggs. So it wasn't always money. They bartered with their products, and they knew how to do that very well. And their post office was Vesper, which is maybe 12 miles from here. So they went by horse and sleigh or buggy to go there. We came here in the winter time, and my dad would put horseshoes on the horses so we could go on the ice, and then the horses didn't slip. But I can still remember the sound of the horses on the ice, clickety click, clickety click, and that's how we would get here. And they had a barn across the road from here, and it was built in the bank, and it was made out of logs and straw, but it was a place to put the horses in while they played poker. Then there was always men coming here to play poker. So they would play poker, and us kids would go to the dock. They had a dock, and all we needed was a twig and some line. Probably we had twine or store string. And then we needed a bait. So if you had chewing gum, we'd put it on the bait and get a fish. You could always get a perch. But after we got the first perch, we'd dig the eye out, and that was our bait. But we never went without getting fish. And that was a thrill for us kids, to be pulling fish out of the lake. That's what us kids do. We play around here, and the men inside, and they always made tea. They got up early in the morning, and they would put this big kettle on the stove, a coal and wood stove, and they'd make tea. And they'd boil the tea, and it was very strong. We could never drink it, but that's the way no cream or sugar, just black tea. And the oldest Métis was the fiddler. So he would take whenever you come, he would take it off the wall, and he'd play us a fiddle tune that was so easy to listen to. Fiddling was a gift that we all liked, and we all liked to hear. And then he would make supper for us. So he would decide to make bannock, and us kids would really watch him what he was doing. Of course, he washed his hands really well. Then he put his flour in the mixture, and just before he started pouring liquid and kneading, he'd make the sign of the cross, that his bannock would turn out. And so he would make the best bannock, and then he would fry the perch. There was always perch, and they didn't have butter because they didn't milk cows. And he must have used lard or tallow, I don't know what he used, but his fish was nice and crispy. Oh, he could fry that fish like nobody else. So that's why we enjoyed coming here, us kids. And then his sister was married, and she lived about 300 feet or 400 feet from here. And they had a family. So when we come here, we would meet with those other children. And so it was a fun time to come. We could swim here, but there was always stones. And in the winter, they would fish through the ice. And then we couldn't fish, but we still came for the poker game. The men always was playing poker. But it was penny ante. In the 30s, people didn't have much money. They played with a cent, 1 cent, maybe a nickel. And then in later years, it got to be a quarter. So if you won $5 at a poker game, you were doing pretty good. Later, when my dad, all of them left the valley, then I got married and lived at the north end. By then, Alec Lemere, he was out of 3 bachelors, he was the only one left. He used a net to net the whitefish. And the whitefish don't bite as a hook, they got a real small mouth. So the only way you could get whitefish was by a net. So he would get a perch and maybe a jackfish, a pike in his net, and that made him mad because when the jackfish got in your net, they rolled it around like a rope and you couldn't catch anymore. My husband, Walter, he wanted to trap mink. They used to trap muskrats and mink, and they'd shoot a deer. Walter, my husband, said, I'd like to learn how to trap a mink, because mink fur was good money. So he came and he showed my husband how to trap and how to set a trap and everything. Lo and behold, Walter never caught a mink. It must have been his smell that he used on his trap, or else he always wore gloves and everything, but he still could not. But this old trapper here, he could get a mink, and if he got a male, he would pull his traps to let the female reproduce. They were always concerned about reproduction. Like if he killed a male deer, he wouldn't shoot the female. So that's how he was. And he used to hunt ducks with a shotgun. So he come to Walter, I'm out of shells. Okay, Walter said, here you got some shotgun shells. I only need 1, he says. So he goes and shoot ducks in a pond, maybe here at the lake, and with 1 bullet he could kill half a dozen ducks. He was just a marksman, so we really appreciated him. His sister, they had lots of kids, so they moved that house to down the valley, and they picked out a place where they didn't need to rent. And so then they were alone here. But then they lived on a road allowance, and then they got chased off of that road allowance, so they took down their house again and brought it back here in the 40s, late 40s. When we were living at the north end, the 2 families were here. So one time, the young one, he wasn't so young, he had a car, and he was drunk, and he fell asleep, and the car started on fire. And by the time he woke up, he had grabbed the handle, and the handle was red hot, so his fingers got burnt, his face he burned his hair until he got out of that car. And that was very scary for us. They come and got Walter, and Walter drove him to Swift Current to the hospital. He said, I'll go to the hospital as long as they don't give me a needle. Walter said, no, they won't do that. And that's the first thing he got, was a needle. But he was crippled for life. His fingers were all bent from burning, and his hair, part of his hair was gone. So they always come back and forth with us, and we got along with them. My husband was white, but he loved the Métis, and he got along with the Lemeres and anybody down the valley. So that's why this place is so important, and I have such good memories. The park took over Darling's Beach, which was there for a long, long time. Alec came to our place and he said, they won't let me fish no more and I only get a small pension. How can I pay for my land and how can I live? He said, they're going to buy my land and my everything and I'll let them do it. But he couldn't read or write. So he said, I'm going to move to Simi. He rented a shack and he only took table and chair, a bed, and some utensils and his clothes. So while he went to Simi, they said, you can come back to your house anytime you want. All of a sudden he came to our place and he hung his head by the table and he said, it's all gone. They tried to burn his house and it wouldn't burn because it was sod. They had put boards on the outside and a boarded roof. They tried to burn it, wouldn't burn, so they dug a hole and put everything in there. So this place, there was no trees, nothing, just flat as can be. So he come to our place and he was just about in tears. He said, they told me they wouldn't leave my house. I have nothing but the shirt on my back. So he said, I guess I'll move to Swift Current. So he went to Swift Current to retire there. And he went to the beer parlor every day. And that was the end of his life. He had no intentions of living any longer. This place was his, and he grew up here. We did see him a few times after that. They lived in a big community house where his sister was there. There was the fiddler, a Métis fiddler there, so he went there. All that was left for him to drink, that he figured that made him feel good. So he died. And that was the end of Lemere's. And we haven't had a feed of whitefish since he left. And today he would not be able to put his net in because this lake is full of boats and they would tangle his nets up, and so he wouldn't have survived even if he'd have stayed here with his house, because he wouldn't have been able to fish. But I have to laugh. When he'd come and bring fish, I knew how to fillet the fish. He didn't, but I'd chop the head off and the tail, and then I would fillet and take the rib bones out and the backbone. He said, I'm not going to bring you any more fish. You're wasting too much. He didn't know how to take the bones out. He'd watch me and say, I'm not going to bring you any more fish. But the kids just loved the fish. And once his brother died, then he didn't know how to make bannock, so he would have to buy bread. And so anyway, that was so sad to see such a good man be dissolved the way he was. And that's why when I formed this historical group, I said, we need to remember him. And that's why we got this monument here, so that we could put it there and people can read who lived here and what did they do, and how important this plaque is here to remember them. They were the first, pretty well the first settlers here. They had a sister, and she was a midwife, but that was before she moved to Montana. But she delivered me. She was a midwife, and she delivered Doreen, my brother. So anyway, not only were they fishermen, but the sister was a midwife, delivered the Métis kids in the valley. They were very clever people and knew how to help each other. And now we have the veterans plaque across the way, and just below that was the barn. So there's so many memories here in the park, and it's too bad that the Métis doesn't own this, so we could make a historical place out of it and tell the history of the lake and of the valley. But the park took this over, planted these trees, and there's no power here, there's no water, and there's no telephone. So if we would have had it, we would have probably made even a sod house to show people how they lived. But that was a dream that never came true, because the park took it over and they wanted to get as many trailers and cabin owners to come here and fish and be on the lake to motorboat. So that's how. That's my remembrance, and I still miss it when I come here. I can close my eyes and I still can see that house. Very good memories, good people, and they protected Mother Earth, the animals, and they were people that knew what it was for reproduction or to make things work. And today that's not, you don't see that. That's why this place has always been so important for us. I'm not going to bring you any more fish.